Personally, for my games, I found the downtime rules a little bit disappointing, but that's because they're designed to do a very specific thing, which is not break the game and give characters things to do during long stretches of time. So, downtime fills that niche perfectly, as written. But if you want to do a little bit more, and maybe use downtime to get the characters more invested in the world, well, this video is for you. Or, if you just are here for a guide on how to run downtime in general, this will also do that. So, let's first get started by defining what downtime does currently and how it works currently. So here they have pre-listed a few downtime activities, because during downtime, which is a period of time the plot is not really doing much high action, it is low stakes, and it can last days, weeks, months, or even years. It's designed to be something that just kind of happens. If your game doesn't have a lot of downtime, that's fine. The game isn't really balanced to have an X amount of downtime. It's just that you might get into issues with characters not being able to retrain as much as they might otherwise be able to. However, earn income doesn't give enough in order to break the game's economy. And that's a big thing, because if the characters earned more money by sitting in town and playing bard songs, they run out of reasons to go out on adventures very quickly in a normal adventuring type group that doesn't necessarily have a big moral quest. So if the baseline downtime activities were too strong, characters wouldn't go out on adventures. So, as such, I want to respect that part of the design. And that's also why things like crafting aren't that strong. And to just make stuff, because, well, the discounts are the same or similar to earn income, and that's, well, pennies and peanuts compared to the massive bounties you can get from adventures. So, as such, a lot of people are confused on why it is this way. And, well, as I said before, it's balance. So usually, with how the book wants you to do it, you start your day or month of downtime or however long, and you ask each person, hey, what are you going to be doing? And then characters kind of say, well, I kind of want to do X, Y, Z. And then you say, okay, so now you roll your check for subsist, you roll your check for doing whatever thing they were going to do during downtime. Maybe you hop out, make that an event that then hops them out of downtime to then go into combat or exploration mode for a little bit, do a thing. But usually downtime is something where you cover a bunch of time passed, a year passed in the game world, and we only spent a couple hours at the table, so we can go back to adventuring. And if you want to play a game where that's style, perfectly okay. And I have nothing against that, because adventuring's fun in this game. And I really respect the designers for having all the base rules be things that will not break away from the core of the game. But that being said, this is not necessarily how I like to do my games. And so, at my games, I add in a few more things to make downtime just that little bit more interesting. But first, let's discuss those two main activities in a bit more detail so we can figure out what exactly they're doing in terms of design. So, let's just quickly discuss earn income. This is going to be the downtime activity that rules written your characters are going to be wanting to do 80% of the time. It's one of the most popular ones. If they aren't retraining, they're likely trying to earn income. And this basically says, oh, you try to find a job in town. You find a job, you then roll on a table. Here's the table. The DC is based on the level of the task, not necessarily the character's level, but the level of the task. There are some examples for this and examples of what different levels of tasks mean. However, the idea is they can find any job that is of settlement level or lower. I might make a video on settlement level later, different topic, but basically, if they're in a village in the middle of nowhere, they might only have level 1 tasks at most. But if you're in a place like Absalom, which is a level 20 settlement, they can get up to level 20 earn income activities if they know who to talk to. And, well, higher level adventurers then have better connections, so you can deny lower level adventurers from doing higher level activities, things of that nature. It gives the GM an ability to say, well, you're actually going to be doing on-level tasks, and that's what a lot of GMs will choose to do. So, with earn income now discussed, let's also quickly touch on retraining, because if a character is not happy with their build, I usually just let them retrain, at the end of the session when we can have a conversation, or whenever we can have that conversation. But retraining is a way for, in the world, in the rules, characters to swap out their build to something that they might be more excited by. So, for example, if your monk is just hitting level 4 now, and they're like, man, I'm just not really satisfied with Wolf Stance. I would have much rather went with the stance that gives me a +1 bonus to armor class. I think it was the bird stance. I'll put it up on screen now because I'm blanking on the name of it. But they want to go for that one instead. They want to go for like a more jump-oriented build because they think that's more fun for them. And then you can say, okay, well, for each feat that you want to retrain, well, you can spend a week and swap it out for a new one. And so you can swap out your stance, you can swap out your stance support feat in just like, well, a couple weeks. And then they spend a couple weeks of downtime. Instead of earning income for peanuts, they instead have a build they're more happy with. So there's a minor cost to swapping out your build, but it isn't so cost prohibitive that characters can never use this. And I really like that design. However, again, I kind of want my downtime to be a little bit more special, so now I'm going to get into how I do that. And here is my secret sauce. The Game Mastery Guide, page 147, all about subsystems. Now, subsystems are great. I love basically all of them. This is what you do if you want to make downtime matter. And in particular, the ones I like the most are research, influence, and reputation. So research lets you pose a big mystery to the players, and then the players then need to go out and find different ways to investigate this. And so you build a library, which is just basically everything that can contain knowledge on this idea. And you give some different skills and different DCs that they can then use to gain points, called research points, that then let them unravel this mystery via their downtime. And so then characters would need to then go explore the town, find different sources of knowledge to then assemble the full picture, and then after they cross certain thresholds, you can have events happen within the world. And so you can then have this well-defined system for having characters all work together to solve a mystery during downtime, which, would make your investigator happy, but, maybe one of the people that knows things about the Fey Uprising are the gang, so then your fighter can then just, be put in a moral spot where they need to then decide, how much can I help them in order to get information from them? Can I try and intimidate them? How can I try and manipulate things? And then you can very quickly have a political style game. On the topic of political style games that involve downtime, let's talk about reputation. So, reputation is basically a thing where an organization as a whole has an opinion on individual character or the party. And so you can keep track of this in a Google Doc where you just have each character's name and organizations, maybe in like a spreadsheet. And if somebody does something good for an organization, you give them some reputation. If they do something bad to an organization, you take it away. And this is a numerical way for you to track how much or how little different organizations like people. And it goes on a scale of revered, where they will basically bend over backwards for you pretty much constantly, or it goes all the way down to hunted, where they want you very dead. And there's a lot of areas in between, and a lot of definitions on what all these things mean. And I really like using this type of system, because that way, I can have all the different factions in the city, make the city more of an alive place by having all these different organizations, and maybe in the process of them trying to befriend the town's guard, the Thieves Guild is now mad at them, and now they went from ignored to disliked. And that might cause problems later when the Thieves Guild has information for research. You can already see how this is making downtime more of a political affair, where characters might want to distance themselves during downtime and start doing different things, and players strategize with each other and try to figure out how to best spend this resource to get the maximum gain. And this won't really work if you're running an adventure path unless there's an explicit segment. But most of those are just like the reputation subsystem dialed up, or influence rather, dialed up to the 9s. And a lot of adventure paths have a thing where they just use influence, but over here, you can see how there could be cross-pollination between these two, and there's these points that players are trying to manage. And honestly, I think that playing with public information of how much people like or dislike you makes it more fun, because that makes the game more strategic. Because numbers are just moving behind the scenes, it can be very easy for players to become disinterested. So I like having that Google Doc of how much people like you very public, unless they start doing activities like lie that are usually a secret check. In that case, I'll have the result of how much they like you be secret until it matters. Well, anyway. Influence is basically reputation, but for single NPCs. And it lets you basically talk up these individual characters after you get meetings with them. And mind you, getting meetings with them might require a certain amount of information or a certain amount of reputation in their faction, and then they agree to meet with you. And then it lets you try and discover what they like or try to influence them and get them onto your side. And that gives you influence points, and at certain thresholds, they might do things for you. I really like these systems in tandem with how they can blend together, and they're all different versions of a core subsystem called victory points. And victory points is just the generic way of, I have a points value to represent this thing, players can do things to take those values up, +2 on critical success, +1 on success, nothing happens on normal fail, -1 on critical failure, and that's the end of it. That's what victory points are. And I just really love the idea of a faction-oriented game in Pathfinder where you are using a combination of these little victory point style subsystems to then make Downtime an actual force of the game. And, if characters do want to retrain, well, who are they retraining with? Because, if your fighter's retraining with the city guard, they might get some reputation points because, look, this guy's really strong and has agreed to help us out sometimes. So then you can have everything that everybody does during Downtime then matter. Because even as a character has decided to go work in a kitchen with their cooking lore, well, who's eating at the kitchen? Because if the Thieves Guild really likes that chef and that chef starts talking good things about your character, you might have some more work coming your way and not from good sources. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. And let me know if you found this helpful. And yeah, that's it. Later.